Hi, I'm here at Luke and Nicole's house. I'm standing in front of a quilt by Luke, I guess. And what I want to know is, what's the origin of this? Where did you get this?
So the quilt itself I bought from an estate sale. A friend of mine called me from Atlanta at an estate sale and said, hey, they've got these old quilts. I know you're into quilts somewhat, so maybe if you want to buy them. So I called the estate sale and bought every one of them they had.
Yeah.
And they, shipped them to me. And I they had them for years. I called up the International Quilt Study Center and Museum in Lincoln and said, hey, I've got these old things. You guys like old things. And They said, thank you. We have enough specific old quilts. And so that meant I had full permission to do whatever I wanted with it. It wasn't precious in a antiquity sense, but so that's the.
And it wasn't precious because I don't know if you can tell this or not, but because it's a rag, it's so completely decomposed that it's barely there. This is exposed batting.
Yeah.
This here, there's only little shreds of the fabric left, and so this kind of quilt usually dies an ignoble death, or sometimes the good parts will be cut apart and made into potholders or something. To keep it intact like this is brilliant. It's fantastic, and the way Luke kept it intact was by quilting it every 1/8 of an inch. Over the entire thing.
Yeah, it might be hard to see, but yeah, I quilted really, really heavily over the entire object to hold it all together, because as you'll see as you get a little bit closer, it is fully falling apart. There's certainly plenty of areas where it's just batting. I mean, I'm assuming it was probably red fabric, because that's one that degrades because of the irons and the pigment initially.
That's right. It could have been red, could have been brown.
Yeah.
But yes, it's just, the fabric is all deteriorated, but now it's made more permanent. Oh boy. And then, who is this? How did this image come to be?
Well, so this image is a reference to Jeff Koons, a big old famous big name capital A artist, blue chip fella, because his works are as far the other side of quilting as possible, because they're 30 feet, they're $30 million, and you can't use them in any way whatsoever.
Right.
There's truly nothing functional about the 30-foot tall balloon sculpture.
You could sleep under it, and it's like a quilt in that way.
I don't know how warm it would keep you, but so I mean, his work is so much about kind of marketing and high art and resale value, that I thought it was such a conversation between these sort of like almost discard object with something that is sort of valuable because of its imagery. So slapping the two together, I felt like a pretty strong conversation there.
See what I'm talking about right there? This is using your noggin. I love this. It's just it's funny and serious and smart and cool. That's what I think about this. Let's look at another quilt. And you guys collaborated on this?
Yes.
In what way?
I came up with all of the surface design and picked out the majority of the fabrics, and then Luke created the backgrounds, did the quilting, and then added some of the, what is this called?
Couching.
Some of the couching.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this doesn't look anything like I've seen people do in quilt classes or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have studied textile stuff. And so what was it? Was it like hard or scary, or was it fun, or what was it to do this stuff?
It was only fun.
Uh-huh.
It was all fun and all joy. And the way that I think about applique is just like one big collage where I'm just slapping things on and moving them around and playing with them before I sew them down.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, this doesn't remind me of anybody else's quilt.
Really?
Yeah. Wonderful. Let's see what else we can see here in Kansas City, Missouri. Here's a double wedding ring. Is this one of a series of double wedding rings that you made?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it was in response to having made 50 log cabins. I wanted to work in a different pattern that's curved.
Yeah. And it's all made out of what kind of fabric?
It's all sheets. Discarded sheets.
Discarded sheets, and I can't quite figure out the pattern that you used in putting these together.
Well, that's funny you should say that, because there is no pattern. The whole point was just I took my pile of sheets and I cut them up into little bits, and then I sewed it together from a pile of fabric bits, and then then looked at it when it was done.
And one thing that I like about it also very much is that the interior of the little double wedding ring thing is black thread, and then the rings themselves are quilted with white thread, and it gives a really cool effect. Would you lift up the corner?
Yeah, you bet.
It's a ghost image of the front. That's so cool. There we go. Beautiful, man.
Thanks, sir.
The next morning, we all went to breakfast at Messenger Coffee and Ibis Bakery, a great spot in Kansas City. And then we took off and went to the Belger Crane Yard Studios, where Luke and Nicole make ceramics.
So the process that I work with mostly is called slip cast. So you use bits of plaster to create a mold form like this here, and then you pour in liquid clay.
Right.
And then what happens is the liquid clay, the water gets sucked to the edges, and then you pour out the middle, and you're left with a whatever size rim of clay on the outside. And then you let it dry and you pull the mold off. And so you get to make some really interesting forms that just look like the mold pieces that you've made it out of. And it allows you to get really super detailed in a way that just takes up the edges of the mold.
Yeah. Now, which ones do you like best?
I really like these ones that Luke makes because I think that they're like quilts. I think they are quilts.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of similarities as to the way that Luke cuts and reassembles his vintage sheets that he finds. Because you are able to get bits and pieces of familiar symbols and nostalgia, but it's all recreated into a new object that you can have a new history with.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Luke and Nicole get to work in Kansas City and make beautiful stuff, not only at their own studio, but also here at the Belger Crane Yard Studios, where they have that great gallery. It's so cool. I was thrilled to visit them, and I'm going to get back to Kansas City just as soon as I can. Thanks for coming along with me. See you later.